Welcome to Mishna study, Masechet Sheviit, Perek Bet, Mishnah Yod, last Mishnah of this Perek. Over here we're going to speak about gourd that hardened, right? If you had these, squash in the ground and they became hard, where they're no longer fit for eating, what's the status of it? And then we'll speak a little bit about rice fields. So, right? You had these gourds and you kept them for seeds, right? Not for eating purposes. You wanted to keep them to seeds. You left them in the ground and they became hard before Rosh Hashanah. And they're no longer edible, right, for man to eat them. Then you could keep them during the Shemitah year. Right? But if not, right, meaning they weren't nifsal me'ochel adam, they're not that hard. You're not allowed to keep them during the Sheviit. Harambam says because perot Sheviit are asur literan u'shomram lizri'ah. You're not allowed to keep fruits of Shemitah year to keep them in order to use them as seeds for the following. Right, so therefore you're not allowed to even keep them on the Shemitah year. Hatimarot shelahem, the buds of them, asurot b'Sheviit. Those are asur also on the Sheviit as well. Umarbitzim be'afar halavan. Right, you're allowed to go ahead. Marbitzim literally means to sprinkle water on afar lavan. So afar lavan literally means a white dirt. Right, most people explain. Bartanura explains this as the sedeh lavan. Right, the white field, the grain field, right? Harambam, though, does explain this as a place where it's an orchard, but there's less than 10 trees in a Beit Se'ah. So if there's less than 10 trees in a Beit Se'ah, then you're allowed to go ahead, and everyone agrees that you're allowed to go ahead and sprinkle the water, irrigate the field. It's not considered an avodah. Right, so if there's less than there's more than 10 trees, there's 10 trees in an area that's more than a Beit Se'ah, you're allowed to go ahead and sprinkle water throughout. But according to Rabbi Shimon over here, Rabbi Shimon says Marbitzim ba'afar halavan Divrei Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov oser. Right, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, he argues and says it's asur. So basically, Harambam is saying over here that any place where you have the trees that are distanced from one another, until you have 10 of them that take up more than a Beit Se'ah, right? So there's less than 10 in a Beit Se'ah. That's what we're talking about. That's the mahloket. But if they are so close where there's at least 10 of them in a Beit Se'ah, then everyone agrees that you're allowed to go ahead and irrigate that area. That's not considered an avodah. Now, you're allowed to go ahead and literally, Mimarasin literally means to stir, but what would they do? They would actually flood the fields of rice. Professor Felix actually explains they would do so in order to, actually, keep the nutrients in there. It would actually shoo away. It wouldn't allow for weeds to grow. Right, so they would actually, flood the area. So the rice is able to grow there, but other weeds wouldn't be able to grow. And what would they do? They would stir the area so the water doesn't sink to the bottom, right? Doesn't get through the cracks and everything. And this way it, actually helps also, enrich the soil as well. So what they would do, mimarasin, that you're allowed to do that. You're allowed to stir, right? Rambam says mimarasin literally means to wahashin ume'arbelin, right? You're allowed to stir and mix, right? The rice fields. Now, but what are you not allowed to do? Well, that's according to Tanakama. You're allowed to memarasim ba'ores. Rabbi Shimon omer avalo mekasechim. Rabbi Shimon comes and says, but you're not allowed to mekaseach. Right? What's the kaseach? Kaseach, actually, when it comes to the pasuk, it's sefiach ketzirachal. Not sefiach. It says lo tizmor. Right, lo tizmor literally is pruning. Right over here, the unkilus says mitargem techaseach. Right, you can't go ahead and cut. Right, you can't prune, you can't cut, you can't chop. So when you're talking about cutting the rice, that's the verb that's being used. And Rabbi Shimon comes and says that you're not allowed to do. So what you only allowed to, right, according to Rabbi Shimon, we're allowed to be mimares in the orders and the Sheviit. Even though you would do this on other years as well, don't think that we're going to allow you to do everything. We're going to allow you to harvest and cut this also, chop it away on the Shemitah year. As we would, with other things. Rather, we're only allowed to be mimares in the ores. Halacha is like Rabbi Shimon over here, that you're not allowed to be mekaseach, you can't actually chop away at it. But halacha is not like Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov that we said earlier, of when it came to sprinkling the afar lavan. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov was, oser, if there was, if it took up the 10 trees, took up more than a bit. Halacha is not like him.